Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zedlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, good news. My brother's graduation at Notre Dame decided that if they're going to have their graduation, it's going to be this upcoming weekend. We're releasing this on a Wednesday. We're recording this on Sunday, May 14th. So thank goodness they're having the graduation on Friday or Saturday. I guess because then it's before D2, D3 nationals and D1 regionals, and it's after all the conference meets. It's like the one weekend they
Yeah.
chose that life isn't completely hectic. So shout out to Notre Dame. If anyone's at Notre Dame and wants to chat about track, I'll be there. But also on the downside, the Sixers got so destroyed by the Boston Celtics that I was embarrassed to be a fan. Um, I was crying a little bit. There were tears. It was just bad. It was so bad. And this team is going to be the bane of my existence.
It took every ounce of self-control for me not to just ruin Mother's Day because of this result. Like, I want to be so mad and break things, but I just can't today because today I need to be a husband. But yeah, we can move on from that. Basketball doesn't exist anymore. I don't really
Right, it
care
doesn't.
any about anything in NBA anymore. With that said, we did have a lot of really good results in track and field that were a nice palate cleanser to look at and review. I mean, we're recording this on Sunday, so a lot of conferences are just finishing up today. We're going to try to hit as many results as we can. We're not going to be able to hit everything. There were a lot of different meets. There were a lot of great performances. Sorry in ahead that we did not get to you. But before we go to that, we have some life on Apple and
We do.
Spotify. One new review on Apple. We're up to 62 ratings and reviews there. And 100, we're up, I think, 2 on Spotify. We're at 101. The review for Apple Podcasts, great review. Said, I guess I'm the only one not boycotting Apple Podcasts. Anyway, I love this podcast. They have a bunch of other things to say. You need to go look on the Apple feed to read the rest of the review. It is great, but for time's sake, I'll just leave it to that.
We'll leave it at that. But thank you. Very kind of you. And also shout out Naomi, all the way in Australia, being our 100th reviewer on Spotify. We're now at 101. She let us know on Instagram. So shout out to you, Naomi. We appreciate you. Appreciate you listening. But we also have so much to get to. Where do you even want to start?
Let's start in alphabetical order, and let's start at the ACC championships, and let's start with the 800s, specifically on the women's side. I think we can go through this one quickly, but Catherine Mitchell, I feel like I say this almost every week about her and a few other people. Every week we think she's like the next big thing and think she's going to just keep rising and keep rising. And every single week, we are proven correct. She looked amazing, looked super composed, beating Lindsey Butler, coming down the home stretch, like just poured on the gas and looked magnificent, winning with a time of 2:01, which is PR for her. Just a spectacular performance and just gives me even more confidence that she is an All-American in the making.
She's awesome. She played it perfectly. Butler went out, took the pace, and Mitchell just sat on her shoulder. Very simple slingshot maneuver around the
Mm-hmm.
curve. Nothing crazy. But it's just good stuff. Like she's just great. And like I kind of like at this point, she's one of those women who we just keep being like, I don't know what more we can really say. Like she's just really good, tactically refined, still getting better, consistent, taking down nationally competitive names. I don't know what more she has to do now to be proven as an All American favorite. She's somewhere in my top 8. I don't
Yeah.
know how or where. Um, but she was awesome. And like Star Price, third place for Virginia Tech, running 202 as well behind Lindsey Butler. Almost got Butler in the final straight.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
She had a great race, and you know, just to be very clear, as a Virginia Tech guy, I got to defend my Hokies. Just because Butler didn't win doesn't mean she had a bad race. Just want to throw it out there. So
I was just gonna bring up the Butler angle, and I mean we'll get to some Hokie love in a minute on the men's side, but I mean I think when you see the result, it looks a little worse than how the race played out. She pushed
Yeah.
the pace early. She was clearly um, wanting to be the front runner and the tone setter here. I think if she was a little bit more conservative, this race could have gone a little bit differently. But I still just she doesn't look like herself yet, and I still I don't know where to put her. I think she should still be an All American. I still would, I think, bet on
Mhm.
her to make finals, but I'm feeling I don't feel strongly about that at this point.
Yeah, I don't know how strongly I feel. I think this was one of the better races I've seen her in maybe probably since Ace in a while, actually, just
Since
period.
the mile, this indoor season.
Yeah, since her Boston U Mile. So I mean, when I take a look at it, I think it wasn't perfect.
Yeah.
She strikes me that she's at 85, 90%,
Yeah.
but it's a nice performance. With a month to go until the national meet, I thought this was fine.
Yeah, this just she needs to get better, and I think she
Sure.
can, and she has time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, she's a veteran; she knows what she's doing. She doesn't look like she has that last gear in that last like 100 or 200
Yeah.
that she normally does. So yeah, I think that lines up exactly what you're saying, 85, 90%. So, anything else on this one before we switch to the men?
Nope. Let's go to the men.
All right, on the men's side, Nicholas Plant, big surprise. The freshman takes home the win, beating Reinhard Swingpool and teammate Ben Nagel. This was a fascinating race. We looks like we were set up for indoor conference 2.0 with Amon Thornton and Therese Roden hitting the front, creating that big like barrier for everyone else to try to pass. But Virginia Tech said, "Hey, we've seen this movie before. We're not doing it again." Nagel goes to the front, pushes the pace, and then the Clemson guys, I don't know what happened. Like they just hit a wall and they fell back, and then you saw Plant just ride behind his teammate and eventually take the lead. Swainpool was coming on strong. If this race had been an 810-meter race, Swainpool is your champion, but because it is an 800-meter race, he is not. But it was just a fascinating race to watch because we had seen the same strategy, but it just looked like Virginia Tech had been prepped and knew what they wanted to do when they saw it.
So here's the thing, Clemson. From if you just watch that one race, you're like, what the heck happened to Clemson? But for distance specialists like us, what we don't realize is that Thornton and Roden were in the 400 meters 40 minutes
Oh,
earlier.
there you go.
Roden ran 45 seconds. Thornton was in that race. Thornton gets DQ'd in the 400 meters, which is brutal. Clemson still wins the entire meet, by the way. And Roden finishes second in the 400 meters, but because Judson Lincoln, the fourth of Virginia Tech, wins it all in like 45 low, which is crazy.
Ridiculous.
Judson Lincoln is then called for taunting. Him and Roden clearly, by the way, had been talking trash to each other at some point. Like there was clearly animosity, and so Lincoln gets DQ'd for taunting, which means Roden's the 400-meter winner, but they still have Thornton and Roden come back for the 800 meters.
Yeah.
I question, does Thornton come back for the 800, or do either of them come? I guess it couldn't hurt. Yeah, I guess the extra points.
Yeah, you get the
Just
points.
all get
Yeah.
in. The points, I guess. So yeah, so maybe not. Never mind. But still, fast. That's basically why, right? And then
Yeah.
Murphy, why he falls back is because he's on the 1500-meter double.
1500. Yeah.
So like, I'm a huge VT guy. Everyone knows. Um, I think Plant and Nagel had the race of their lives. Nagel was the guy who made that race. Like without Nagel,
100%.
I don't know if Plant is really in as good a position as he is. They ran fantastic stuff. I think now Plant for sure is someone who I see, or maybe even Nagel, who can get to the national meet now. And I don't know if I would have said that, a
Hmm.
week prior. Um, I also want to like understand the context of like Thornton, Roden, and
Yeah.
Murphy. We're not fresh at all. If there was a race where Plant and Nagel were going to dictate this, it was going to be this race. So to me, it makes sense.
Yeah. Yep. That's fair. But yeah, really good performance from those guys, and I just was impressed with their tactical
Hmm.
moves there. They did something a little unorthodox where they tried to took the lead even though the pace was already fairly hot, and really controlled it from then on. Um, Anything else for this one? We want to move to the 1500s.
Let's move to the 15s.
All right. On the men's side, we saw Ethan Strand take home the win, beating Luke Tewalt and Parker Wolf. Strand running 3:38. This was another fascinating one. We saw a lot of movement in the last 400 meters. Parker Wolf took out the pace fairly hot at the beginning. Then you saw Virginia freshman Gary Martin in the lead briefly, but it was Strand who went past Tewalt and just had a furious kick at the end, limbs going everywhere, but he was able to hold on and take home the win.
Strand looked great. He looked great throughout this entire weekend, prelims and finals. And honestly, Tewalt did too, besides the stumble. Do we want to talk about the West Porter DQ? Because I feel like this is an interesting
Yeah,
conversation.
go ahead. Yeah.
So it's basically like prelims. It's but Tewalt's racing in the middle of the pack. Porter's
Yeah.
behind him in that prelim. And then Tewalt, I guess, hits the back leg of Porter, stumbles, gets caught, gets brought down, and then Tewalt unbelievably rallies, gets third. It was actually a great effort. Rallies, gets third, but doesn't get the time qualifier. Porter, I think, is the guy who wins the heat, or maybe it's Spec, but he's an automatic qualifier per se. But then Porter's disqualified for impeding. I'm just going to say this. I don't think Porter should have been disqualified. I think Tewalt should have advanced. Don't get me wrong. I think Tewalt had every right to advance. He should have advanced. He would have won it on appeal anyways. But Porter was tripped up from the guy behind him. And because of that, I think that is what ultimately sent Tewalt tumbling, because Porter was tripped up and then a little bit into the legs of Tewalt. That's what it is from my perspective. I didn't want to see Porter disqualified. And that's a Virginia Tech alum saying that. So,
yeah, I agree. I don't love the DQ. Most of the time, I feel like you have to see someone intentionally going out of their way for there to be a DQ. But in a situation where just legs get mixed up in the 1500, especially in those prelims, everybody's all right together. I mean, the pace usually isn't super fast. Everybody's in it. One small movement from one person has this long chain reaction backwards, and that can cause some messes sometimes. But yeah, no, I completely agree. Would have loved to seen him in this race as well. I think he would have been right up there possibly as well. But yeah, I just thought it was, I mean, Jesse Hunt was someone that we thought could win this. He looks like he was right there, but teammate Strand just had a better kick, which was kind of impressive to see.
So yeah, Strand in his post-race interviews is saying hey, yeah, we kind of had took a more softer approach to the season.
Yeah.
Had 2 races. They were good races. They weren't amazing. And I was throughout the season, what's going on with Strand? He actually turns out to be electric, fine, 338. Yeah. And he just looked like a completely perfect miler. And I keep on, I'm like, man, Strand versus Murphy, Strand Murphy. It's one of those things, and I think they complement each other really, really well. Just in terms of what I think their long-term rivalry could be, or something along those lines. Tewalt looks like a different runner. So Tewalt looks great. I mean, this is his second 338 effort of the season. I mean, he just looks in command, in control. He looks like he can be the guy for Wake Forest after a lot of these guys move on.
Yeah. I mean, for what he did in the prelims was incredible, and he very well could have won this race. He was right there. I mean, it took a heroic kick from Strand because Tewalt was pushing it, pushing and gave him everything that he could handle up until the last 50 meters. So yeah, he looks reborn, and I mean, we knew he has the talent. He's always had the talent, and I think he's just fulfilling all that potential right now this year.
I agree. So that's all I have on the 15s for the men. Do you want to talk about women?
Let's just briefly touch on it. If I remember, Margot Appleton didn't have the best prelims, but boy, she looked good in this race, winning in 4:14, beating Amina Matug and teammate Esther Seelan. Matug, again, she just got caught up in traffic. I think if she runs a little bit of a cleaner race, she might have been able to win this race. But Appleton, after not looking great in prelims, and me a little questioning whether or not my faith in her was warranted, comes back and makes me a true believer again. I thought she looked great. I thought she ran a very smart race. She was conservative. She didn't get mixed up and stuff too early, but made a decisive when she made her move. It was decisive, and it ended up being the difference in the race.
Yeah, I mean, it was just great. Like, and that prelim was a little scary because you're like,
Hmm.
what happened? You're like, that was weird. And she almost gets kicked out, and to think like, that's your champion. But she had a great rebound race. It was convincing. You just kind of see like once she had control, she wasn't going to relinquish that. Um, the mass pool of talent behind her was a little chaotic. Like it was a bit
Yeah,
crazy to see Amarst. Is it we get corrected on this all the time? Is it Tanisma? I think it's Tanisma. Is it something like that?
Tanisma probably.
Tanisma,
Yeah,
probably
because we
what it
always say
is.
Tanisima, which is probably wrong.
It's probably wrong, definitely wrong. I just want everyone listening to know we hear you. We're trying, sorta. So Tanisma, she didn't have a great race. She kind of
Nope.
faltered a little bit. But then when you kind of look at who she was facing, it's like, yeah, it's not totally unrealistic that in a somewhat semi-tactical race
Yep.
that like there were Matug and Seelan and Churchill and Hansen, and Hansen's a great tactical runner.
Hmm.
That they all get ahead of her. So I'm not freaking out, but my Tanisma should run the 1500 over 5K theory is not looking great right now.
Yeah, I'm team 5K.
Yeah.
I think there. So yeah, she was okay. You go one by one, like you said, and you're not like stunned to see the people that are ahead of her. You just would have thought that she would have been closer to that top three.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I good race for Appleton. Again, makes me believe that she could win at nationals. It has the potential, and I think that was a good rebound for her. And hopefully a good wake up call for her going into regionals when she's going to have to run well through 2 rounds.
And you rather have that now
Yeah,
than in the times that it actually matters. Because at nationals you can't get away with that. At
no.
nationals you'll get hawked. But yeah, great win for her. Great rebound.
Let's go to the steeplechases real quick. On the women's side, Olivia Markovic took home the win 940, Katie Thronson 944, and Sophie Novak 948, completing the Notre Dame sweep of the top three. Again, every ACC championships and more really quick steeplechase times. We saw that on the men's side as well. Markovic, I mean, really quick time, really impressive performance. She's someone that we obviously believe has the talent to do this. Set the facility record and meet record, which is kind of crazy considering all the talent that's come through
Hmm.
um, Raleigh in the past few years. And Thronson continuing to just be a stud. Everything that Notre Dame could have hoped for. Does this where does this put Markovic in your like steeplechase rankings on the women's side now?
Um, I think she's a title contender.
Okay.
Um,
Is
I,
she
I
like
think she has.
3? Like
She's 3 or 4.
okay.
Yeah, I think she's 3 or 4. Where would you put her?
I think 3.
Yeah, and I think that's the right answer. She has a 9:35 PR, the fastest steeple time, which as we're recording this came from this past weekend, was 9:35. Greta Karaniskate of California Baptist
All on her own, right, too?
on her own, completely solo, which is
Wild.
insane. She's having a great season. Yeah, I mean, I think just because like I also think she's just naturally more talented than 940.
Oh,
I
yeah.
do. Her times, her resume suggests that. So, and plus she wasn't really pushed like
She
Thronson
won
was
by
4
4
seconds
seconds.
behind. Yeah, she wasn't really pushed. So I'm pretty convinced that Markovic can run faster. It's just a matter of what's her top end compared to a McCabe, compared to a Thorner, compared to a Mitchell, compared to a Delay, right? Although Delay has not been running super well as of late. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be, especially with delay not running great. Like, it's gonna be a. It could we could be like sitting 4 or 5 women deep in terms of like true title contenders. Which coming into this year, I don't think we would necessarily expected that.
so Greta Karaniskate, I do want to stay on the women's steeplechase. Soloed that 935
Mhm.
steeple, right? Um, do you see her as a title contender?
I mean, she's just so like new to this national stage in this event. I see her as maybe what's the level between contender and like All-American favorite? I don't know. Like it's some like
Fringe contender.
yeah, fringe contender. I think like if everything clicks and like she just runs if she runs like she did this weekend at nationals after running a prelim and then running that, like then I think she's definitely got a great shot. But it's just when you're going up against the women that she's going to have to run against and run 2 rounds of really, really good fast steeples, that's hard for me to say, where we've seen a lot of these other women be able to do that before.
Yeah, and my thing is that it's not that I doubt her talent. Like, you look at what she's done this season, she's been fantastic. She's going to get ranked in our top 25. I don't know where yet. She's been great. She ran 15:36, I think. So like she's been running incredibly well. But it's just like 9:35 completely alone is different than 9:35 in a loaded field.
Yes.
And I think that matters. And I just think it's not that we're questioning her talent. It's just that we just don't know enough about where she is at this level against other competition in rounds, like you said, on the national stage. It's very, very, very different. And so again, I don't think we're writing her off. I think that's why we're putting her on the fringe scenes. It's just like let's see more. And I think we'll know more.
Absolutely. Let's go to the men's steeplechase for ACCs. Nathan Mountain took home the win, 8:32. Derek Johnson, 8:33. Tom Seitzer, 8:34. Mountain's been on a tear all this year, especially in the steeplechase. He's run well in the 1500 meter as well. I expected fast times at ACCs. This was maybe a touch faster than I expected. I didn't think that they were going to scare 8:30 or sub 8:30 this close. But again, like these are guys who have run well in the steeplechase pretty much all year, and good conditions, good competition. This is kind of what you get.
Mara Beatty had great predictions for the women's steeplechase. She predicted Nathan Mountain first, Derek Johnson second, Tom Seitzer third, Kevin Robertson fourth. Wow, not bad. She had Jagger in fifth. It was Sato in fifth. I did tell her, hey, it's going to be faster. But regardless, if we toss the times aside, she had a great, great, great week of predictions.
Yes.
Across the board in like a lot of different things. She actually had a great weekend. But yeah, I mean, this is though kind of a little bit what you would expect from me. I think Seitzer is like a big winner here because he had the most complete resume, I think. I thought he had shown a lot that was really positive, and now he has the time that makes me think like, okay, you can contend for an All-American finish. So this was encouraging, but Mountain and Johnson look great. They both have had great seasons, haven't really had too many poor efforts. I don't know. It's just like one of those rare but also like predictable ACC steeplechase instances where like I think you're all going to run fast, and I think you're all going to be viewed as winners at the end of the day. So
yep, yeah, and I think the hard thing about this is not to get too over our skis in terms of like these performances, because this does happen every year where we're like, oh man, all right, let's put 4 guys from the ACC into our All-American predictions. I think we've learned from that a little bit, but I still think like there's 1 or 2 guys that certainly deserve to that All-American kind of status in our mind.
I want to do a super quick T4 search and see how many ACC All-Americans there were last spring, because I don't think it was that
there
many.
Any? Was there one?
There was not a single one who made the finals.
Yeah.
So you have a very good point. Very good point, Benjamin. So, okay. We can move off of that though, because I guess we just proved we don't need to talk about it. No, I'm just playing. There's great performances though.
Let's go to Big Ten 800 meter championships on the men's side. Camden Marshall taking home the win in 146. Adam Spencer, second 146. Handel Robin, 147. Robin took this out pretty darn quick, 51-3. And Marshall was right behind him. Spencer was a much more conservative, nearly like a second and a half behind, or over a second and a half behind, but ran a fantastic last lap, like nice 1 seconds difference between 400 and between the first and second lap for Spencer. Ran it like a true 1500 meter runner, but it was Marshall who took home the win. Really good performances from these guys going up against Guy and Robin, who we've seen compete at the top level in indoor nationals. And for both of these guys, especially Spencer, more of a 1500-meter guy, great sign moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Spencer, this is a huge performance. I think it gives his resume a little bit more value than we initially had or expected. I mean, 146, 337 in a single season,
Yeah.
plus winning a Penn Relays title.
He's
That's
got some
impressive.
speed. Got a
He's
good
got
kick.
some speed. He got some. He has a good kick. Like I would be very scared of him right now.
Mm-hmm.
And but Marshall, meanwhile, like he's just getting better. Like he just ran 147 the other week, and now he's added 146 now, and a Big Ten title over Spencer and Robon, which are two no joke names. Like to get wins over those guys is a big deal. And he's run 339 for 15, so over 800 meters. Where are you seeing him nationally?
I'd go 800 at this point to be able to.
Sorry. Let me rephrase that. Do you see him as an All American?
Oh,
I don't know if I'm there yet, but I mean,
yeah, he's there. I mean, he's there. He's very close. Like I would have him top 10 in that event. Like, and so that's
he's ranked fifth in the nation as of right now, and this is with all the Big 12 results just coming in as well.
yeah.
There are 12 guys who have run under 147 this year, and one of them's Colin Solomon, one of them's Adam Spencer. I don't know if those guys would be even running
No.
the 8. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think he has pretty good shot at being an All-American. Like I think this is a very what I love about this performance more than anything is I mean the time's good, but to be able to go out this quickly, like 50, he went out in like sub 52. That's what you need to be able to do to hang like in these kind of regional kind of like the first round at nationals. You need to be able to at least, you don't have to go out in 51, but you have, if it does go out in 51, you can't be miles behind. And if you can go out in sub 52 and like be right there and then have enough in the tank to be able to take home the win, that is the most important thing. And so that's what I really like about this performance. And that leads me to believe that he's going to be able to like be competitive in almost any 800-meter scenario.
Great observation. Really good observation. I completely agree. I think that might be the best piece of analysis that I've agreed with you in on the podcast in a long time. Completely agree. I think if like it's gonna go out in 51 on the national stage. Someone is gonna do it. And if you're doing that, like you can maybe get away with that on the regional stage. On the national stage, you're not. And so if you're gonna go out, you have to be able to be there, be prepared to go out in that pace, and then still run 146. You have to be able to. And I think that's exactly what Marshall showed right here. And so you're right. I think that kind of gives me a little bit more confidence about his All-American chances, especially when you take a look at who he just took down. So.
Yep, absolutely. But speaking of 800s, let's move to the Big 12 and let's stick on the men's side where we saw NCAA #1 time in the country, Yusuf Bizimana, the indoor 800-meter champion, run 145.8, beating Mehdi Unari of Oklahoma State 146. And Creighton Carrozza 146.7. They tied actually to the 100th of a second, or 5/1000ths of a second difference. That's about as close of a finish as you will see. But Bizimana just looked great, looked so strong to close. Carrozza was doing his best to hang on to Unori, or to catch up to Unori, but just wasn't able to close all the ground. But you got to be thrilled, I think, if you're all three of these guys. I think they all ran spectacularly well. Carrozza doubling back from the 1500 meter. This was everything that you could have hoped for, I think, from these top three.
Yeah, I mean, Bizimana, Carrozza, like kudos, great racing, love it, like yada yada yada, so on and so forth. But they were capable of doing this. Like they were capable.
They've done it before.
Done it before. Like we've seen this wildly impressive stuff. Mehdi Unori ran 146 in the prelims. He ran 146 earlier this season, and now he's run 146.71. I mean, got Carrozza by this much, but he got Carrozza. He got Kipiego. He got Peter Smith. He got AJ Green of Kansas. He got Marco Vilca. He got Jason Gomez. He got Hafez Mahadi. Like, those guys are no joke. Like, that might be I mean, that Big 12 800-meter final might
It's
be
as
better
good as
than
anybody.
it's as good as any SEC, ACC.
Yeah,
It's good as anyone else. Maybe even that Big 10 field. Like it probably
it's
definitely
better.
better than the Big. It is
Better.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's now run 146 3 times. He's validated himself. He just took down a huge field. Like if I'm Oklahoma State, I am ecstatic because I can tell you this: El Buchebe has decided where he's going. We're not going to report it yet, but we do know where he's headed, and he's not going to Oklahoma State. I can tell you that. And so, if you're Oklahoma State, you need an 800-meter runner, and
Looks like you got one.
it looks like you got one. Looks like, and guess what? Hafez Mehadi is actually pretty good too. But to have a guy who can run 146 3 times in the span of what, a month?
And Juan Diego Castro, when he's firing on all cylinders,
That's
can
true.
be
That's
can
true.
be
I
that
mean,
good.
Juan Diego Castro is, I think, wrapping up
More
his time. I
15.
think
Yeah.
Yanori has another year or so, but like huge stuff if I'm Oklahoma State right now and need a middle distance presence. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think for DMR for next year, they're looking
yeah,
just as scary.
yeah.
Only better. But speaking of Oklahoma State and middle distance, let's go to the 1500-meter final where we saw Fouad Massaudi edge out Ezekiel Rop in a thrilling race. I think Isaiah Pretty was effectively the rabbit for Oklahoma State. He took this race out very quick. It was weird. They didn't have like splits when I was watching, and now that I'm looking at their live results, they aren't showing splits either. So not sure how fast they went out, but they had to have gone out quickly because Massaudi won in 3:36. And it was just Massaudi and Rop once Pretty left the track. And Rop looked like he was going to get him, but Massaudi, after looking like he maybe had been gapped with 150 to go, closed really hard in the last 100 to take home the win. I would like to say we learned a little bit more about Rop because like we wanted to see him replicate what he had done at Brian Clay, but this was another time trial. It's hard to say. Like he ran another fast time. He was competitive with Massaudi, which is great, but it's hard for me to say we learned a whole lot about him other than that it was good to see him replicate that same kind of time trial performance.
I think it's a little. I think there's a little more of a magnitude to that performance. Like from Massaudi, I don't think we definitely didn't learn anything.
No.
We didn't learn anything at all. Like love him, but like 336, like yeah, it's about right. Rop, like it's just that 336.99 was it from Rop earlier this season? It was so out of nowhere,
Yeah.
and I'm just like I'm not going to be honest. I was like, okay, prove it, do it again. He kind of did. Like he ran 337.03. I think that's huge. I think it's a massive result. It validates everything, proves that he really is one of the absolute best 1500-meter runners in the nation right now. And the fact that like he's being really competitive with Fouad Massaudi in a race this fast, I think it tells us a lot actually. And so if I'm Rop, I am thrilled. If I'm Iowa State, I'm thrilled because I think I now have a guy who's like I think the 1500-meter finals could be fast if the right person's there and they opt to make it fast. And I think in that case, it looks like Rob would almost benefit from that.
Yes, and I guess I should say like obviously like it's great to see him replicate that. I think I'm more worried about like what are we going to see from him in a more tactical setting or like in a bigger field where there's a lot more guys around him. Um, and that isn't nearly as fast, where the pace isn't nearly as fast. But it's great to see him pushing Massaudi. If there's anybody in the country that you're going to lose to, it's Massaudi right now because like Massaudi isn't losing to pretty much anybody at this point. So there's no shame there. So yeah, I mean, from that standpoint, I think you have to be very happy with what you're seeing from him right now.
I agree. So what we have next on the table here?
Let's go to the Pac-12 and maybe run through some performances real quick. On the men's side, we saw Brian Fay take home a win over Charles Hicks. Big win, 28-24. Fast race, too.
Mm-hmm.
You rarely see a 10K run this fast at a conference meet. It was the Fay and Hicks show, though. They won by almost 20 seconds. And for Fay to pick up this win, and then he followed it up just today with a win in the 5K.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, man.
I know. And
He's
did
not.
you read
I
the?
mean, he's not running the steeplechase, but
Yeah, I
he
know.
could be. He is going to be dangerous in, I guess, both 5K and 10K now.
Yeah, he looked really good. I mean, the kick that he puts down on Hicks was like, oh my gosh, that was convincing. Like it was crazy impressive. 28-24 is awesome. 14:08 come back the next day. Like he's just commanding these races, and his speed looks good. He's been patient. Like he's so convicted in his moves. He looks like he's just like tactically racing IQ wise. He looks like a completely different runner from the winter months to now. Like in the winter, he just never looked like he knew exactly what to do. Now he's like, I'm the best runner in the country, and
Yeah.
he's like, I'm going to race like it. It's completely different runner, and like he just seems so much more sure of himself just when he's racing. I'm not going to lie, man. I think you're right. I think he could win a title. It's definitely the best he's looked from a race style and approach standpoint that I've seen maybe ever in his career.
Yeah, and I think there's a level of consistency to him that we
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen. We've seen these flashes before, but he's now following that up, beating some of the arguably the best 10K runner in the country right now at his own event, and then following up that with another strong performance in the 5K where he wins. Like we just haven't seen that level of consistency from him throughout a whole season. And as long as he can continue to kind of ride this wave, ride this momentum, and not kind of hit a little bit of a bump when we hit nationals, like if he runs like this, I think he's gonna win. Like I just don't think there's any ifs, ands about it. I think he just has to run like this.
I mean, I'm still big on the Dylan Jacobs train here. Like
Yeah,
I'm not. I mean, maybe if you want to talk 5K, sure. 10K, I don't know. I mean, Dylan
yeah.
Jacobs is just like I just trust him a little bit more still.
Well, he's
Would
done
I
it.
be? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I just trust him. Do I think Faye can win a title? Yes. I don't know in what event. I think I'd still favor Jacobs in both. Because we've also done this before, but we've also been like, hey, you know who could be great on the national stage? And it doesn't always work out like that for Faye
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. It's not that he's been bad, but he's been like the all-American guy that we know he can be, but he's never truly been in the mix for a national title like I think we
Oh
have
yeah,
thought he
no.
could be at times.
And
So
I'll be the
that's my
first person to be a little harsh on him for that, like because I have such high expectations. But I like I said, I just like what we're seeing from
yeah.
him week in week out a little bit more this year.
I mean, this is definitely
Um,
the best he's looked over the course of a season,
yes,
undoubtedly. Yeah.
absolutely. Where are you at? Staying in the Pac-12. So we saw Juliet Whitaker win the 800 meters in 2:01, beating Carly Thomas 2:02. Those two were kind of on their own. Willis ran the 1500 meter and did not have a great race. Are we? Is this a yellow flag? Is this like any concern there on the Willis front?
No, I mean, if this was the 800, I'd put up a yellow flag. But I think it's a 15. She's young. It was a fast race, by the way. I mean, 409, by the way.
Whew.
Like, I
Melissa
mean,
Tanaka is so underrated. She's so
she
good.
is so
We haven't
underrated.
talked enough about her. She's so good.
No, she is, and we should talk about this race in a moment. Um, yeah, I'm not super worried yet, and I'd also, if she's going to have a bad race in a year where she hasn't had a bad race,
Yeah,
I'd rather it be now than on the regional national stages.
fair.
So no, I'm not. Let's talk about this women's entire 1500-meter field
Yeah.
though. Plord 409, Tanaka 409. I'm a huge fan, by the way. Thornton bot 411, O'Sullivan 412, Gibson 412, Mia Barnett 413, Mitchell 414, Elmore 415, so on. And Kazmierska 419. So, I mean, Plord, I think, is undoubtedly going to run the 15 now.
Yeah,
She
I
has
think
to.
so.
She has
But
to. I know.
yeah,
I know.
yeah. I don't know, man. Like this, if you look at this field, like this, looking through it, this probably has the most national contenders for one event of any race that we saw all weekend. I mean, like you look at Plord, Barnett, like Tanaka has, I think, put herself in that discussion. I mean, you
Yeah.
obviously Willis, this isn't her event. Mitchell, this is not her event. But like all these women are like contenders in their own like events, and to throw them all together for Floor to look this good. I mean, is she ever going to lose again? Like, is this like a
Well, if Tui
situation?
runs the 15
Yeah,
at the national meet, like, then
but
yes.
even then, like, I don't know. Like she,
Benjamin.
I,
Benjamin
I'm not
Weissel.
saying that she's the favorite. I don't think she'd be favored over Tui. Let me be clear. I think Tui would 100% be the favorite. But like, if anybody's beating her, I mean, she's just unreal.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a bold statement.
Yeah, I agree.
And I know what you're saying, right? I don't think it's like sacrilege to be like Tui could lose. It'd be like get him. But no, I understand what you're saying. Florid's great, 1500. If Tui doesn't declare for the 1500, Flord should be the favorite.
She needs to DM Tui and ask what event she's doing.
Right.
Unless she's doubling that, it doesn't matter. But she legitimately should ask, because whatever she's not doing, she has a fantastic shot at winning.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, and we're not joking. Like, we're not joking.
No,
like, hey,
she should
message her. Like, message her. Go figure it out. Hey, can you do me a solid? Like, can you just help me? So yeah, I would agree with that. Tanaka though, All American, right?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
she's been criminally underrated. She's been such a huge help for Stanford over the last going back to indoor season. And this is a breakout race. Obviously, she's been good, but she hasn't been great like this before. Although some of those DMR legs maybe, but like this was a breakout performance. And I mean, she is 100% an All-American favorite at this point.
Like, she was arguably the best leg on their 1050 mark for winning the DMR Penn relays.
100%.
She ran 204 back in late April, now 409 to narrowly miss a Pac-12 title, beating Izzy Thorntonbot. Thorntonbot, let's go back on your chances here of like where we're putting them all in contention. Yeah, no, I mean, okay, we'll skip that conversation, but I think it's very clear though that there's like this Plord, Thorntonbot, Appleton kind of contingent there that's still very clearly like up in the air. Where if Tui doesn't race,
not a great sign for Barnett's chances in that group. No. Obviously, it's one race, but getting beat like that, not great.
Yeah. So, all right. So we'll move off of that. I want to just check out, make sure I didn't miss anything else. I don't think I did. Ventures 32-32 solo 10K, great race, but I think this is pretty straightforward for the rest of it.
Yeah, good run from Nathan Green to win the 1500 meter over Kai Robinson, 342. But I think that's it from Pac-12. So we want to move on? Let's
move on.
All right, let's go to the SEC championships and let's talk about the women's 5K. We were talking about, obviously, what event Tui does, but Parker Valby being maybe not 100%, but trending that way, is also going to throw a wrench into people's plans in the 5K, I'm sure. This was such a weird finish. Yeah. Like the announcers being like, all right, Parker Valby's taking home the win. Also, please just have a little excitement in your voice. Like just a little annoyance there. But no, Chilane comes storming back, and dare I say, if she hadn't had her hands on her watch,
no, stop.
It was 4/100ths of a second. I mean, like, I think a butterfly wing like flapping could make like at least a 100th of a second difference.
Okay, maybe you're right. Yeah, listen, was it great? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like,
it was Valby too. Like she like let up ever so slightly.
She did let up a little bit, and also like, if I'm Valby, if I'm looking at the Jumbotron coming, like entering that final straightaway, and I'm looking at the Jumbotron, I was like, oh, I have Chilane got beat, no problem.
Yeah.
Like, she was so far back, so let's quickly, before we talk about Valby.
Yeah.
Kudos to Chilane. First time I've seen finishing speed from her in a very long time.
Yes.
That was actually kind of encouraging despite the watch stop. Do want to give her credit where credit's due. 15:25 is like a no-joke time in a conference meet. Where do we want to start with Valby?
Well, it was an interesting race because I see the result and then I go back and watch like the last 4 laps, and I was kind of envisioning, I was like, oh, okay, like she just led wire to wire and like maybe probably gapped them initially and then they maybe came back. But I mean, they were right there. I mean, it was Valby, Chilengat, Olamame right there for a while. And it was, I mean, Valby didn't have the lead the entire time there, or maybe she did, but Omami was like right there on her shoulder at a point. Chilengat was right there. But she kept responding. I was really impressed with her last 800. I thought she did a really good job at answering each of those moves. I don't love that when it comes to the national stage. I don't think you should answer to every move, and I think she might have won more if she had it. But all that said, I was impressed with the way that she handled those last few laps, showing that she could turn over a little bit more and more as needed.
Here's the thing. I don't really care about the time. I don't really care about the win. It's not like the time is actually impressive and the win's impressive, but it's only impressive in the context that you understand it in. She did a post-race interview. We're like,
Yep.
hey, what's going on? She's like, 3 to 4 month injury. That's undiagnosed, by the way.
Yeah, the undiagnosed was kind of scary to hear.
That was weird. And they're like, yeah, there's a few little things that like we're working that maybe are affecting it. But it's undiagnosed. One track workout in spikes since February. What is it like? She has a massive compression sleeve on her
Yeah.
left foot with tape on the back. And is it just me? And I hope it's not just me, because the commenters say this too. She
Yeah.
had a hitch. She had a hitch in her stride, right?
Well,
She did.
I was thinking that, and then they said something. I was like, okay, good. Like I was like, maybe I just forgot how she ran because it's been a while. But
But there
like,
was clearly a hitch in her
yeah,
stride. Like she's not healthy, very
yeah,
clearly.
yeah.
And which is, I think, makes this win that much more impressive. She ran 15:25, beat Olamomwe and Chilenga, and won with like dragging her leg. Like she's limping. Like it might be the most impressive win of the season.
Well, it's like one of those things where it's like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? Because like, you just spun it
Yep.
for a good thing. Like, all right, if she gets healthy, like it's like if you're, and I just swore off basketball, so I can't be using a basketball analogy. But it's like if your team's down 3 points at half and your star players are playing terribly, and you're like, well, you know what? As long as they play well, we're right there with them, and as long as they turn on the second half, that this is a good sign for us that we're that close without them playing well. Or it could be a bad sign of being like, no, there's an issue here, and if that issue doesn't get resolved, we could have some bigger issues in the second half, or in this case, further down the line for her. And I think there's, while it is great to see her be able to do this in the state she's in, it still doesn't give me a whole lot of faith that they know how to fix it by nationals.
Oh well, they're not going to. They're just not. Like
Yeah.
I don't think. I think at this point, if it's 3 or 4 months undiagnosed, you're not going to fix it in a month while still racing. That's concerning. It just is, especially given her history. I don't know. Like, here's the thing. She's like, yeah, I came back because like I know my team needed me for SECs, and I'm like, but wait, so does that mean you're gonna? So are you also gonna race at regionals and nationals? Like, are we doing that too? Like, because here's the thing. You think like, okay, well, she just ran 15:25. Surely she'll run. Well, but she ran 8:49 for 3K this past winter, and she didn't run at SEC. She
Yeah.
didn't run at NCAA's. This is probably a little bit different. She's clearly healthy enough to run 15:25. I think that's more just raw talent, but I don't know. I think I actually have more questions now
Yeah.
than I do have. We got answers, but somehow ended up with more questions. Very odd.
Yeah. 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 That Valby always shows up after a few months, and you're just kind of like, what has been going on with you for like the last like 3 months that we haven't seen? You know, and
Right.
it's always a facet. I mean, the whole indoor saga was weird this year. Like there's always something going on.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But
but great win. Great win.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Let's transition to the women's 800 at SCCs, where we saw Michaela Rose just look dominant once again, 159. Just looked like she was playing a different sport than
Yeah.
everyone else. Like, and these are good 800-meter runners behind her. I mean, Imogene Barrett third, Sylvia Chilinga 203 in second. Like, good runners behind her, but she just looks on a different planet. It's going to take really great performances from the Stanford duo to beat her. Like, then they did it at indoors, but they're going to have to do it again to win it outdoors.
Do you have Rose as your title favorite?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I think I do too.
I think I have the combined chances of the Stanford duo ahead of her, but individually, I think I have her over either one of them.
Okay. And it's like a mano a mano kind of thing you
Yeah.
have Rose.
Yeah.
Okay. That's right. And I think the only reason why we have that is because we've seen now Rose run 159 twice. She split 158 on a relay. It's like it's now not like something where you need to have a miracle day to run 159 to even be a
She just has
contention.
that average day, and
She
she's
just
gonna
has to
run
have like a
159.
typical day that she's had this season. And I think that's ultimately the, like you said, like it needs to have what is time wise been an average day, which is crazy to say about a 159 runner. But nonetheless, I don't really have a whole lot more. This is all pretty straightforward. I don't know if you have anything more.
No, let's go to the men's 800. Will Sumner took home the win in 146. We saw Sam Whitmarsh second in 146 as well. Tiernan Corcoran and Baylor Franklin from Ole Miss third and fourth in 147. This was a very encouraging performance from Whitmarsh. We kind of saw this last year at SECs, but then he wasn't able to run, if I'm remembering correctly, at regionals due to some kind of health issue.
Mhm.
So great to see him back. He's like that's very sneaky, underrated guy who we just haven't seen a lot of. But when he's healthy, he is as good as almost anybody. And I think you have to put him in All American contention. I don't think he's a favorite necessarily, just because we haven't seen him at that level, and this is kind of him spiking out of nowhere a little bit this year. But I like what I saw from him. He looked composed, confident. It was a really good kick from Sumner to be able to beat him. But I think in a few more weeks we could see the roles reversed in this kind of race.
Two major takeaways. Whitmarsh is unafraid to be at the front. This is the
Yeah,
second SEC Outdoor Championship where he's run 146. He's only a sophomore. He now understands what he's doing. He has really good control, and like he's just not afraid to be in front of the top guys and be
nope.
aggressive. And I think at the national stage, you need that. So I'm really excited for him. I agree. I think this is great validation for what he did last spring. It shows that he's healthy. I would hope that the condition isn't going to affect him like it did last year before regionals. And then there's Sumner. Sumner's 146.2 is the co-NCAA lead before you added in Bizimana's
Yeah,
145 mark. I mean, Sumner 146.2, and then he cruises across the line,
yeah.
shows off his jersey, is bouncing on his legs, and it's like it just like nothing even affected him. I think he can go faster. I think he can run 145 this season in the right scenario. His tactics are great. He showed that during the indoor season. He's doing great now. Like no one who's a freshman should be that fast and that tactically understanding.
Yeah.
Like it's because we've seen, Donovan Brazier, right, as a true freshman, just have such raw, incredible fitness, but I'd say Sumner, his understanding of tactics is just as good, if not better.
He's a faster Brandon Miller at this point of Brandon Miller's career.
Oh, ooh, I think I like that a lot. Yeah, I would agree
I
with
mean,
that.
I think I compared to him this indoor season where I was like he won SECs, but was kind of right on the fringe of whether or not he'd make
Hmm.
NCAA's. He ultimately did, but that was what Brandon Miller did. I don't even think as a freshman he did that. I think it was a sophomore, and it took Miller a little bit of time to pair the raw speed and fitness with his tactics, and then once he did, it was game over a lot of times for his competition.
It was his
Some
freshman year, by the way,
It
his
was
Miller's
okay,
freshman year.
so
Yeah.
very similar then. So same kind of scenario where Sumner has already kind of paired that raw fitness with what he already has in terms of tactics. So I don't know if that means he'll win NCAA's this year, but I would be very surprised if he left Georgia without an NCAA title.
I literally said those exact same words in the First Thoughts article. So
And I didn't even read it yet.
you
So
didn't even read it.
look at that.
You and my mom have so much in common today. But it's Mother's Day. She's busy, okay? But she's busy watching the Sixers ruin her Mother's Day. But yeah, I just made Ben very upset for those listening. All right, we're going to cap it there because it is Mother's Day, and Ben has to go be a husband and a father. I have to be a 27-year-old degenerate. So that's like where we are at in our lives. We've got another First Thoughts article coming on Monday, although this is being released Wednesday, so moot point. D1 rankings, D3 rankings, and then regional predictions, D2, D3 previews for the national meets coming up next week, and then reacting to regional stuff as well. Like we've got a lot going on. So very excited. Be sure to go check out the site. I'm gonna maybe work a little bit more on YouTube. I've been trying to configure that. We're 99 subs on YouTube. By the time you listen to this, I would hope that we are at 100. So please go subscribe there. Rating and review on Apple and Spotify. We've been doing great as of late. Really appreciate that. Everyone, please go check that out. And then Benjamin, is there anything further that you have to offer?
That's it. Until next week, when we're in the postseason, we are ready to go. I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.